Hello, everybody. One of those worked. Thanks for joining us today, and I hope you all had a great lunch. So we are here today to talk about automating site management in a decentralized IT environment using API. Now, you've probably been to other sessions, and you've probably heard this before. I'm going to say it again. So we're doing things a little bit different this year. As opposed to how we've normally done the Q&A, we're going to be using the app. So if you can take a moment, locate your app, and then choose Session Q&A. Once you've found our session from the list, you can start submitting your questions there. And then everybody else can do an upvote for questions. At the end, I'll go through them, and we'll pose them over to Matt McChesney and Aaron Wood. Take it away, guys.
Afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our talk on automating site management in a decentralized IT environment. What we hope to show you is how our group uses Jamf in an environment that, how it has evolved over the past 4 years. Our environment is a little bit unique, and it presents its own challenges, and most notably, being decentralized, and there are lots of different schools, departments, where Jamf, we are offering that as a service to many of those peoples, and many of those people will have varying needs and requirements. Just to introduce myself, my name is Aaron Wood, and I have held the backup role as a Jamf administrator to Matt for about 4 years now. I'm also an administrator for our implementation of Configuration Manager and Intune. And my 17-year career has been split between higher education and defense contracting environments. So over to Matt.
Hello, folks. Yep. Well, my name is Matt McChesney. I am the primary Jamf administrator for ITS, or Information Technology Services, with UVA. I've been a Jamf administrator in some capacity for about the last 8 years, but I've been in IT for about 20 years, with my primary background being in education. Worked in both K-12, higher education, slowly gained some knowledge in Mac OS, and as things do, I got more and more responsibility on the Mac OS side and have become one of the main Mac folks at most every place I've been an employee. So I've been through most of all the Jamf trainings. The most recent one being in 2021, I went through the Jamf 400. That gave me a lot of ideas on how to utilize the API with what we were already doing. And you'll see that evolution in what we're talking about here. I've found attending JNUC to be a great asset to my knowledge base, and the very core of what we got going on here, kind of the seed of it, was started at my first JNUC that I came to after joining UVA.
Okay, so just a little bit of background. University of Virginia is located in Charlottesville, Virginia, founded by Thomas Jefferson, 1819. It is an iconic public institution of higher education, boasting nationally ranked schools and programs, diverse and distinguished faculty, a major academic medical center, and a proud history as a renowned research university. UVA has a student populace of about 23,000 across 12 schools, as well as many faculty and staff in many other departments and academic medical centers that has worked on medical research and health policy. So we work for ITS, Information Technology Services, which works to provide high-level IT services to all of the academic schools and departments for knowledge sharing and cost savings benefits, and Jamf being one of those services that we provide. So as far as how we offer Jamf as a service, In this way, we very much function like a managed service provider, more than a central IT department. We provide pre-built workflows for common good software, for patching, and also machine provisioning. All of our services are opt-in, so we have to work at providing value to the schools that are looking into joining the service above what they could be doing on their own. And we also handle administration of Apple School Manager for DEP enrollment and VPP. We have a wide range of sites from School of Education to the library, School of Nursing, engineering, as well as research departments. And each school has its own local service partner, LSP, it's like their technician. And each of those individuals has their own workflows, preferences, and special situations. Also, each of these LSPs have varying levels of experience with Mac OS, iOS management, using an MDM. Some have lots of experience and want a highly customized environment, and some want just a turnkey solution with minimal setup. Now, these LSPs are who become our site administrators. The next few slides will go through the evolution that we took to solve these challenges and how some of these solutions became the basis of how we decided to automate some of these workflows.
All right, so where we originally started was I started at UVA, and I was blessed with the opportunity to start a cloud-based Jamf implementation completely from scratch with nothing else there, which can be a blessing and a curse. I'm like, okay, I have this. It is my duty to figure out how to make this work. Where do I start? Luckily, soon after I started was JNUC 2019, back up in the freezing north that winter. I had a meeting with some Jamf folks there, and I said, this is our situation. How should we start to implement that? And the top level policy configurations is one of those tricks. They said you can use these policies, create them once, and then you can pass these triggers down to the different sites, and they can use those pre-configured policies. So that's where we started. This is kind of the very basics of where it all began. So every trigger is unique and can be called by any managed machine that we have in the system. They're just set to ongoing with a trigger to all managed clients, and that trigger is the only thing that's going to cause them to occur, and those are managed by us. We take care of updating those, making sure they work, testing them on a regular basis, and making sure everything is good with those. Additionally, these commands can be used in the files and processes to execute these commands inside of policies at the site level. So we can give the site admins these, and we've showed them how to put that in files and processes so that they can use it inside their own policies and scope them however they need to for their stuff. And then in that way, we keep everybody kind of on the same page as far as at least what the policy is doing. We can also attach these policies to packages, and so we don't have package creep, so everybody uploads their own version of Microsoft Office and wants to install that. We can have one version that everybody uses, and so far that has worked fairly well. Additionally to this, if one of these starts failing, we hear about it fairly quickly and can fix it. All the logs are in one place, and if it stops working for everyone, which is a blessing and a curse, but we usually hear about it pretty quick and get it fixed, update it to whatever needs to be updated, and we're off to the races again. It's much better than having one fail randomly in a site somewhere and not hearing about it for ages. So there's that. All right, so then after that, this is something that might be a little bit unique to our situation, but we really needed was a group that was a step above site administrator. Something that we could put folks into where they could get to some of the back-end stuff, the scripts, the packages, printer stuff, that sort of thing. But we also wanted to limit to maybe 1 or 2 folks per site. So not everybody in that site would have that access, but at least a couple folks would have access to upload their own packages and things, and keep that up to date. They have system-wide read-only access, which works for the collaborative nature of our organization. I know some folks out there that have sites, a read-only access to everything might not be something that you're willing to do, but in our situation, it does work for us. Site admins can easily share their own workflows and policies for others to view, so other folks can see what other site admins are doing. We try to keep a good community of sharing going on. And we ask that all items created in these shared spaces have the appropriate site prefix, and even after that, some additional naming conventions, so that we can really keep track of things from the top level. When we're looking at things, we know exactly whose site that belongs to, and going forward. There are common items for everyone to use that should be used for uploading new items. We kind of say, hey, we've got all this stuff common for you, just like we had with the top level policies before. Please try to use that before you go and make your own thing. They do have lots of freedom to go ahead and try and make their own stuff and do their own thing, and we try to accommodate that as best we can, but we also try to keep things clean. And they have no permissions to delete any items, what we have them do is, if they needed from the shared environment, place the packages, the scripts, and things where everybody has shared stuff. Just to keep everybody on the level, we remove delete from that, so they can't accidentally delete something. And what they do is they just give it the prefix of delete, and then every once in a while we go through, and us as the top level admins will get rid of the things that are no longer needed. System administrators, they control access to the group. So we control access to, it's called the ITS full Jamf group. And we add people to it and take people out of it as necessary. And if anybody is ever really causing any big issues, we can remove them from that group. So far, nobody has ever done anything malicious in there or caused any trouble, thankfully.
That we know of.
That we know of. All right, for the full Jamf group, this site is read-only. It was so this is the template site, right? So for the full Jamf group, they can get to what's called our template site. This is kind of the next level in our evolution. We decided to make a site dedicated just to, for use for example and documentation, just so we can say, hey, this is how you do this policy. This is the best practice for this. This is how it works, and we could link things to them, and they would have access to see it and see how it was done. It quickly became a repository of known good items for reference. They all use the top-level policies, so they can see how they go into files and processes and put those triggers in, and that sort of thing. These can be copied to any site manually as well. So we had the ability to go in at that point from the template site and do a copy of these policies, configuration profiles, and all kinds of stuff to that site. But that got to be real tedious because it's one at a time, over and over again. And after a while, we got a good set of common good stuff going on that we wanted to make sure that folks had as soon as their site was created. As soon as their site gets created, instead of just getting a blank site, they've got something that's already usable. And so we would build that out for them. Took quite a bit of time to do that one by one for every site that got created. So in my mind started turning, and then came after the Jamf 400, that's about when we are here. So I took the Jamf 400 and I started looking at the API real hard to figure out how to do this in a more automated fashion where we're not clicking one by one and copying things over to the sites, but having the ability to do so in a more automated fashion. So getting this template site set up is kind of the crux of what we were what helped the API actually work. And the main thing is the naming convention. Keeping the naming convention straight is what the API uses to kind of read through it and figure out what is what and what belongs in what area. So we can have self-service items, we can have provisioning items, we can have things like that. And you see the self-service tag up there as well. So that's kind of what the API is going to actually read to do some of the copy tasks here in the future. So, like I said, after I learned some API stuff, my brain started turning real hard. So I'm like, it's time to go on an adventure, go down this road and figure out how we can use this to eliminate some user error, enforce some best practices, and build some complete workflows directly out of what our template site had available. So that's what we are going to dig into. So the first thing we did is I built something super basic that was really just meant for myself and Aaron here to copy things over en masse. So we started using this to make progress of copying policies from the template site easier, and we could do more than just one at a time. Came over, would already be renamed and ready to go, and it was just a simple script that we ran as needed. It was a good start, but we decided to go a little bit further with it. So what it did there is it basically just asked, hey, what do you want to copy? What site do you want to copy it to? And it was using the ID numbers of the policies. So we could put a string of ID numbers in there. It would read through each one of them and then copy those over to the site that we needed it to go to. So how it works. So what we do is it goes through each one of those policies and it curls down the XML for each one of them using the API bearer token. And we save that to a local temp file, and then we do some nifty sed replacements on them. We remove the scope, change the site to the selected site, and rename the policy to include the correct site prefix. Change the custom event trigger to also include the site prefix so we get a unique custom event trigger off of that. And set the new ID to 0 so it uploads as a brand new policy. So this result, we get a good working version of the policy with all the settings intact that is now in the selected site. We can loop through multiple policy IDs, rapid copy policies to different sites from the template site. This made copying policies much quicker than manually clicking in the interface to do one by one from the full Jamf Pro and going back and forth through screens to get things done. This would go through and we get a nice set of good working policies. And right now, as far as we are right now, this is, we were just doing policies. We hadn't gotten to configuration profiles yet, advanced searches or smart groups, but we will get there. So, additional items to copy, like I was saying, we were just doing policies. Now, we decided to go through and look at it a little bit further. Can we do configuration profiles? Can we do advanced searches? Can we do smart groups? And luckily, those things were fairly similar. So it didn't take too much tweaking to get those also working. And then also, I gave it a nice UI upgrade with Swift Dialog. I'm sure some of you have heard of Swift Dialog, but it is a fantastic tool, especially for getting a nice unified UI going. We use it for several things. We also use it for our provisioning policy as well. That comes down after a DEP enrollment or a web-based enrollment. So kind of gives us a unified look to all the things we're building. Nice logo and everything on it. But basically now we have this come up and you can select, do you want policies, configuration profiles, advanced searches, or smart groups? Another thing we found this really helpful in is a lot of our site admins kind of getting them out of the mindset that they need to make a smart group for everything. Is that they go, oh, we have some advanced searches as well we can use. So to have some pre-built ones in the site ready to go, it at least gives them the idea that, hey, maybe these are useful too. Maybe we don't need a smart group for everything. Maybe a advanced search will get the job done. So yeah, another one of those things. Let's talk about the Swift Dialog to increase the usability, put the UVI branding on it. This makes it more readable, easier to use, and keeps the user error at a minimum. Because that script that we were using before, you saw where you had to type it. We had to type in the actual policy ID. Now, if you didn't type the policy ID right, it didn't work. So what this does, instead of typing the policy ID, it is going to, I'll show you on the next slide, how we kind of fix that issue. There we go. So what this does, it actually reads through the template site. So we're only copying things from the template site to other sites. That's kind of how our workflow goes. We have a testing site as well. We do testing on the testing site. Once everything works on the testing site, we then do usually a manual copy, because it's usually only a couple of things, over to the template site, make that look good, and then we can get, once it's in the template site, it's available for everybody to use. If it was something that was also like very critical that we had to get out to everyone, some kind of policy for a patch or an update or something, we could go ahead and copy those over to all the sites so that they would be there ready to go for folks to use. But this is a way that we would do it normally, where it just shows us a list, and you can hold down Alt and get a whole bunch of them. So using this, users now technically don't need direct access to the template site to see it. Before they needed it, because they needed to get into the template site to see the ID number, to then pop it in the script, and that was really what we were doing. But now, they don't even need access to the template site. We still have the ID numbers there. That was kind of a holdover from the other one, but I still kind of liked them there for reference purposes. And so, security. So now we've got this thing, it works. There is an API user that obviously has to read the template site and get the information. So how do we go through and make sure we do that as best we can and as secure as we can? So the API user only has permissions needed to complete those copy requests. We've kind of cut it down to what those things are there to make sure it had read and stuff to the things that it needs. And so the credentials for the API, we use the bearer token access, and the credentials are encoded into a single string, which the bearer token uses. But then we also take that encoded string and encrypt it with a salt and a passphrase. The encrypted string and the passphrase go into the policy parameters, and the salt stays in the script, and we disseminate this out through self-service. And the self-service job itself is only accessible to that full Jamf group that we made before. So only our higher level admins that we talk to on a fairly regular basis and trust get access to do this. All right, yeah, and the pieces of the decoding processor, split between the encrypted string and the passphrase. Jamf policy parameters, make sure to expire, and we expire the bearer token when it's done gathering all the information that it needs. All right, so before we release this into the wild, we wanted to make sure we had also good error detection. So another thing we used was the original script would just sit there with no feedback and while the process took place, and then you would have to go into Jamf to check to see if it actually did what you wanted to do. But now with Swift Dialog, using some other things, like the progress bar, the script will detect if an item by the same name is already present in Jamf, and that site, and if so, it will not upload it. It'll go, hey, there's something here already with that same name. If it's already there, not going to upload it. Then after the upload, the script will double check the new ID in Jamf to make sure it exists. So it gets an ID when it uploads, and then we recheck that to make sure it actually does exist in Jamf. And if it does, cool, we have it, and it should be in the right place. And then the copy confirmation page shows up, and it says exactly what all was copied and if it was successful or not. Also, detailed logs are available in Jamf at the top level, where we actually disseminate this down through self-service, so we can always go in there and look. If somebody says, hey, one of mine failed, which sometimes they do. Every now and then we'll get one that has some kind of weirdness on it that will fail for some reason, and we'll have to go and troubleshoot it a little bit. But usually everything we've gotten through usually works. Usually it's a policy, usually in the parameters. Somebody might have thrown a weird character in there or something that didn't jive well with the replacement. and we'll have to check it and either change the script to accommodate that or change the policy to make that work right. And usually it's in our template site anyway, so we have control over all of those policies, so we can usually make those adjustments and move forward fairly quickly. Yeah. So what have we gained? So new site creation speed. So now we can fire up this thing, pick off our policies, our configuration profiles, our smart groups, and our advanced searches that we use for new sites, and have a site. And instead of things that would usually take hours, we can now get a new site up and running within a couple of minutes. Now, most of the policies that get pushed through, they do come through with no scope attached to them, because we don't want these policies to take off and start doing things immediately. We still want to reserve the right of the site to the site admin to scope these and get them running. But at least they're there, they're working, and they're all known good best practice policies. Advanced troubleshooting. So with this process, if a site admin gets into a bind with one of these pre-configured policies, we wipe it out and we recopy it. And then we know we've got a known good policy there that should be working and ready to go. If it's still not working, we can always put one of our computers into our template site, test it there, make sure it's working there, recopy it, see if anything happened in the copy process to cause any weirdness, and get things working. But so far, most things have copied over pretty quickly and easily. Quicker deployment of system-wide initiatives. Let's say InfoSec has a new tool that they need to push out. And we did this with a tool called Qualys that we had not too long ago. And the policy needed to be, I wanted to make sure everybody was using the same installer package. But the trick of it is that particular tool needed a key as well. And the key was unique to every single school that used it. So we put that key area into a preference in the script that ran after the package to get that key into the right place. We made a template profile or template policy for that and copied it to everybody's site. So all they had to do is pop in their key and deploy it, and good to go. And that worked pretty fabulously well. The folks that weren't in Jamf at the time were jealous of that, because we do have some folks that aren't under our umbrella yet, but with these kind of advances, we try to keep them coming in. All right, and site admin autonomy. So our site admins, we're not completely hands-off. We definitely have an overarching view of everything in Jamf. We do try to make sure everybody follows best practices for policies. No inventory gather ongoing every hour. No kind of nested smart groups. We're trying to make sure we don't get any of that. And that's what this kind of helps us do. Not only does it give them best practices right out of the box, but it also gives them examples so they can see, oh, that's how you do that, not this other way. And we have a lot of smart groups that we also have ready to go that they can use as well. All right. So some future improvements that we're looking at. Complete site creation automation. So right now we're using the same tool to create a site that we use just to copy regular things, but maybe to have a specific list of policies, configuration profiles, and smart groups that are ready to go. So it's like a one-button click and tell me what the site name is, and build that out. iOS items. We don't have as many iOS items as we have macOS items, but definitely trying to get some of that under control as well. There's not as much there with policies, but definitely configuration profiles and smart groups and advanced searches in iOS items is something we will look at going forward. And just general script efficiencies. Trying to get this script to run correctly and more efficiently, and maybe even get some of our naming conventions to make more sense or run better. Always looking to make it run better. I haven't gotten into a lot of the nitty-gritty of exactly how that script functions in the exact detail, because it really relies on that template site. So if you don't have a template site built out in the exact way we do, that script won't work for you. But hopefully this gives you all some ideas on how maybe to manage some sites in this fashion, and start first by building out a template site, a site where you have a bunch of known good stuff that everybody can use, and then you can start digging into the API and how to copy those things over like we have here. And really, that's pretty much the end of what we have going on here. So time for some questions, I suppose.
Thank you very much. So we actually do have quite a few questions that have come in. I'm going to run through them. There may be some that might tie into another question, so I'll do my level best.
Okay.
The first one that came through is, as decentralized IT, do you provide the file vault configuration at a top-level policy, or do you allow the site administrators to manage their own file vault?
Yes, we do allow the site administrators to manage their own file vault, and that is one of the policies that we create in our template site for them to use. I also create policies for provisioning, and it's in there. And since they do have that full Jamf Pro access, they have the access to go in and create their own file vault policies. I have a common one ready to go. 90% of people use the common and are fine with it, but they do have the ability to change that if they really wanted to. And if they ever had a use case for something that they really needed to change, they can always come to me. We can see if it's something that everybody needs, and we can do it that way.
Excellent, thank you. The next one that came up is there any technical restriction about site admins to upload permissions around editing their own group items, or is it just trust?
Right now, yes, it's they can edit their own group items, and yeah, we do have to go through theirs every once in a while, and you know, check on things. It is a very a very kind of community-oriented kind of way to do it. I know that's not for everybody. It's also part of us being a university and kind of one entity with lots of different folks underneath. So we do have some leeway there. But yeah, I can see how in some cases, definitely in a decentralized environment where that would be tricky. But we have managed it quite well and not had too many issues, thankfully.
That is awesome to hear. Next question is, how do you handle automated device enrollment? Does each site manage their own enrollment?
Automated device enrollment, since I do manage Apple School Manager, most folks have to purchase their Macs through our central bookstore, and then they put the things into DEP for us, and then each one of the sites has their own MDM section inside of there. I try to make sure things go into the right places. Usually the bookstore will be able to put things in the right places for us. And then once they're in DEP, they flow through to that person's site. They have all their pre-stages set up. Pre-stages are one thing that I do have to still at least create one for a site to start with. They can create their multiple pre-stages after that for anything they want, but I get them one pre-stage to start with that will kick off policies and provisioning for at least the most default stuff. But that's kind of how that works, is I do kind of do tweak some of the Apple School Manager stuff on the back end to make sure it's all good. I can move things around between different MDMs back there, but but the bookstore does handle most of that for us because they're kind of our certified retailer.
Thank you. One,
Yeah, they have.
I feel like that was a rhetorical question about having your bookstore talk to his bookstore. But the next one that we got was, how do you deal with permissioning with whatever authentication method you're using, either it be Azure, Active Directory, Google, whatever you use?
Yes, so we do use Azure Active Directory, or Entra ID as it is now. Hard to keep up with the names these days. We did get that set up so that full ITS group is an Azure group, and we can add people to it as we need to. They log into self-service. There's a bunch of admin tools that we have built in to self-service for that group. So when they log in, they get all kinds of tools other people don't see, and this is just one of them.
So this one's going to be a thinker. This person's organization has almost 60 locations and will have 100 by the end of this next year. They've regionalized computer smart groups to track updates and all of those other components, but as new locations or buildings open up, they have to manually add them to the smart group they belong to. Can the API reference that you've got listed there be able to help resolve that? Put the building's address to add them to the regional smart group they belong to.
My brain says that's a possibility, but I would have to do some research on that. Just from what I've looked at, there's a lot of stuff you can do with the API, for sure. And to get it right always takes some tweaking. But they were saying that they had buildings that were then managed, that then went to regions. I mean, you can read all those things and do some logic in the script to make that work, probably. But I don't have the right answer off the top of my head at the moment.
That is fair. Question came in. You apply a good naming convention. Do you use a versioning convention?
I do on the scripts. On the policies themselves, it depends on what that policy is pushing. If it's pushing an application, usually we do the versioning on the top level that we manage. So the top level policies will say what version of the app that's pushing. And really, the naming convention that you would use in this could be completely up to you. You could do anything you really wanted to do. We just tried to do it as best we could at the time. So it seems to be working fairly well for us so far.
So we've got a question that asks, by copy, do you mean clone? Or is it copying the content to create new items, such as creating new policies from the content as opposed to cloning?
Yeah, it is effectively kind of like a clone, really, where it's a brand new policy, so it takes all the XML of the old policy and then does some replacements to that XML for the site codes and the things that we need to change, and then it takes that and it uploads it as a brand new policy.
Excellent. So if a configuration, configuration profile, for example, needs to be updated in a template site, how do the current ones that already have that one can get applied? How do the current ones get applied to that site?
Right. So this is something where they are really autonomous in how they are managing their stuff. We have a Teams group that we have going on that I say, hey, we just updated the configuration for this thing. It does this stuff now, or it applies to this version. Please, go ahead and grab the new one. It'll make a new configuration. Go ahead, test it, make sure it works in your environment, and then move on. So the folks that we do have, I mean, they are IT folks. We are just trying our best to build tools for them to use, more so than kind of force them into do stuff. Some people are on it. Some people it takes a while. It's not something that we super enforce, but we make available and we make it known.
So this question, I also have this because I was not paying attention either. I'm bad. Is there a GitHub for this tool, or did this person miss a slide?
I don't have a GitHub for this tool, mainly because, like I said, it's greatly tied to how we did our template site. And if you were to do this on your own, you would have to do your template site however it fits your environment, and how to do your naming convention. There's no real solid way to do it. It's still something I'm working on as well. If anybody wants me to share on a deeper level what it is, I'm on MacAdmin's Slack as well. I'm on there quite a bit, so I'd be gladly talk to anybody on there about what I'm doing. I don't really have a way of disseminating it out in a way where I can really keep track of all the versioning on it with my day-to-day job. But I would definitely love to talk to anybody about what we're doing and how it works. Sure. And a GitHub project for this isn't out of the realm of possibility. Just haven't gotten there yet.
That is good to hear. I've got one more question. To be very fair, we've got a lot of questions. So I'll ask this one, and then I'm going to ask a follow-up. I have somebody who's asked, we have one instance of Jamf Pro with 50 actual, not dev, not testing, 50 actual sites. And site managers of varying interests or skill levels. So do you have any tips for anybody who wants to go down the path that you went through?
I was very thankful. So yeah, that sounds pretty similar to what we have here. And I would say the best tool, even above anything we've shown here, is the communication. Keep your communication open, keep your documentation up to date. We kind of started building all this, through the age of the pandemic. So what we used as our tool, Microsoft Teams was our tool of choice. We set up a group in there, and it's talking all the time in there. So keep that communication open, encourage your site admins to communicate with you, try your best to make sure they understand what best policy practices are, and most people seem to be fairly efficient at taking care of things once they kind of understand what the rules are. But yes, things can get messy when you have multiple site admins and multiple sites, for sure.
The last question that I had, and this is just for everybody in the room. You mentioned that you're on Mac, I'm in Slack. Is there a way that anybody here could catch up with you at the conference? Are you doing any brain dates?
I haven't done any brain dates as of yet, but if anybody's interested in contacting me on Mac Admin's Slack, feel free to come see me after this, and I will try to get my information to you as best I can.
Excellent. We've still got the Q&A open in here, so if you have time, that you should be able to have access to that to answer any questions that I couldn't pose to the room. But I would like to thank everybody, and thank you, Matt and Aaron, for letting us know all about this.
All right, thank you. All right,